Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give it just another minute, make sure that everybody gets on before we get started. I will go ahead and tell you that I am really excited about our program today. I think we have some excellent speakers and a topic that's very, very important for all of us. Let's see, a few more people need to be let in. We're still coming in. I'm very happy that people have come to hear this very important topic today. So that makes me happy, but I apologize for the wait. Think that maybe everybody, Krista, is that fair to say? Awesome. So thanks, Krista. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jeannie Patterson. I am one of the community training coordinators at Partners Health Management. And we do have we're going to talk about a very important topic today. So we are recognizing the fact that January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And it's a topic that we all need to learn more about. And it's very scary to listen to it sometime, but we have some terrific speakers who do some wonderful work. And I'm not going to waste time listening to me talk. I want you to hear what they have to say. So our first speaker today is Jennifer Jacquet, who is with Safety from Online Sex Abuse. They go by the acronym SOSA. And I will ask her to share, if you will. She's going to try to share her screen, I think, and tell you about the work that SOSA does. Jen, if you're ready.
Hey everyone, it's really nice to be here today. I'm the Director of Operations at SOSA. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this works. Let me just make sure I've got sound sharing. And there we go. All right, so we're going to discuss some very sensitive material today. I only have one video and hopefully it works, but feel free to take a break if any of this, is upsetting to you. Online sex abuse is a growing issue. It is something that most parents aren't really familiar with. Most of us didn't grow up with a smartphone in our hand and all the dangers that come, online now for children. We talk about cyberbullying and things like that, but sex trafficking and online sex abuse is something that most parents don't really know about. And I think it can be a little bit overwhelming. So that's what I'm going to talk about a bit today. So SOSA, we were followed by a docu-series. Some of you may have heard of us from that. It's still streaming on Max. There are 2 seasons. One took place in mostly Connecticut. The other took place mostly in Oklahoma. We are currently working on a new show. It's not really a 3rd season because we're producing it ourselves, but it's the same producers. And it's going to follow the work that we do. We work with law enforcement. It's something that is sort of unusual. So just to talk a little bit about our organization, we really work to prevent harm, intervene in abuse, and support survivors and families of online sex abuse. The piece that is followed for the docu-series that we do is that intervening part where we work with law enforcement. So we work with ICAC teams, which is Internet Crimes Against Children. And basically, there are perpetrators that it's very hard for them to find and to apprehend. These are more sophisticated people who, aren't going to fall for maybe a picture of the dispatcher in a bikini. They want to go on a video chat, or they need a really somebody who's able to, speak the way that teens speak, which is changing every day and is something that we sort of try to keep up with. So, that's how we are able to help law enforcement to find perpetrators of online sex abuse, as well as sex trafficking. So one of the things that we will do is we put decoys online. So children, people who look like children, and we will create like a whole life for them. And that is who the perpetrator will be speaking to, but we also will put someone who's portraying a mother selling their child. I know that's really hard to hear, but sadly, that is something that perpetrators are looking for. And we are able to convincingly do that and apprehend people who are, involved in sex trafficking. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're not vigilante group. We really only do this work if we can work with law enforcement, usually have buy-in from district attorneys before we even start doing anything or put a decoy online or anything like that. We understand that online sex abuse can lead to hands-on abuse, but that the online abuse itself can be very traumatizing to children and teens. So that's very important for us. We do education presentations like this. We also work with providers who work one-on-one with abuse survivors and parents. So we've also worked with legislators. Here in Connecticut, we helped to pass HB 6737, which is an act making it illegal to communicate with a minor in a sexual manner. Most people don't realize that, unfortunately, that is not the law everywhere, or the laws are very murky. Unfortunately, laws don't always keep up with, what's happening online. So, and we support survivors. So we do have a therapy program where we connect survivors of online sex abuse with therapists who we vetted, and we pay for their sessions. So, we want to talk about how bad it is. This is a quick video from our show, and I'm hoping you guys will be able to hear the sound. If you don't, Jeannie, do you mind just raising your hand and letting me know?
Perpetrators are looking for gratification, but at the expense of a child or a teenager. So they're building these relationships and they're communicating with kids explicitly. They're being verbally abusive. When I talk to parents about grooming, they think it's something that happens over months, weeks. They think, I would definitely recognize if something was different in my kid. I'm not concerned about that. The average amount of time it takes for a child to get groomed is 8 minutes.
Sorry, just gonna go there. There we go. So I was one of those people. I have a 12-year-old, and I definitely thought, if I am looking at their device once a week or so, if I have, some child safety parental controls on, everything's fine. And the truth is that unfortunately that is not the case. These perpetrators can be very manipulative. They can work very quickly. We had situations that we documented on the show where someone went from first contact to meeting with someone they thought was 13 years old in 1 hour. So that's why this is, a very serious and important issue for parents and providers as well to be aware of. When We Protect surveyed thousands of teens in North America, they found that 71% of respondents had experienced at least one sexual harm online, which is pretty astounding. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry, I don't know why. There we go. All right, so we're going to talk about some ways to prevent online sex abuse. One of the things that I think we are a little bit different about is that, there are a lot of organizations out there that say, don't let your kids be online, lock everything down. And while I think delaying some things makes a lot of sense, especially social media, the reality is that kids are online even at school. We have had situations where children have been connected with a perpetrator on their school device, their school issued device. They're going to friends' houses, unless you are Amish or you really don't, really don't allow your child to have any access. They are going to be online. So we think that it's a better approach is to have these kinds of discussions, have some best practices, and really create connection with your child. So, one of the best things that you can do is to develop a secure bond and relationship with your child where they feel comfortable coming to you if they have an issue. Now, granted, this is good practice for a lot of things. And so that's sort of why we say invest the time in having these conversations, because it's going to help them with things like bullying or other issues, drugs and alcohol issues that might come up. If they feel like they get into a situation that they're not comfortable with and they can come to you, that's going to really protect them from a lot of things that they may be exposed to as a kid or a teen or a young tween. We want there to be a non-shaming, open dialogue between parents and kids. We also think it's really important to be mindful of victim blaming. Unfortunately, it's very common that a kid might come to a parent and say, this weird thing happened, I don't know like what this was, or someone contacted me, or the parent will see that someone that the child doesn't know has contacted them. And the initial response is taking away the phone, getting rid of everything and grounding them. And so then that child is not going to come to the parent the next time something like that happens. We're not saying that there shouldn't be consequences, but there needs to be some awareness that they're not going to become so panicky and punitive that they're never going to, have a chance to recover from it. So, we talk about that it's not really about control, it's about connection. And you're trying to develop that. So one of the things that we always point out is children and tweens and young teens cannot consent to a relationship with an adult. So that's a first thing to start with, is that even if the kid is saying this is something I want, or this person is really nice to me, it's just something that they can't consent to, and it's not allowed. We also recommend having conversations about how do you identify a supportive adult? How do you figure out somebody that you can go to? If that's not the parent yet, how are you developing relationships with, say, an aunt or one of your friends? Sometimes teens will not listen to their parents, but if they feel like they have some adult that they can go to, it might be the parent of one of their friends. That's also a safe adult. And so helping your child to identify, okay, I hope you can come to me, but if for some reason this just doesn't feel comfortable, I want you to know that you can go to so-and-so. And then having a plan of action. So, when something happens, what are you going to do? Who are you going to go to? Sometimes these sorts of interactions don't feel icky. They can feel supportive. They can feel like they're getting positive attention. So one of the things that, we often say is if someone is asking you to keep a secret from your parents, an adult is asking you to keep a secret from your parents, that's not a good thing. Adults should never do that. They shouldn't. Surprises, that's okay. But secrets, we try to keep away from. So I ruin everybody's day when I say that any online app or website or anything like that that has a communication feature can be used for sex abuse. There's a potential for it to be used. We've had coloring books come to us and say, we are seeing communication that's inappropriate. Like I said, things like words with friends. It could be really anything. We've had perpetrators say, I don't want your parents to see this, so let's both download a makeup app and we'll use that to communicate. So, I don't want to demonize Snapchat or Instagram. I know that's what a lot of people hear about. But I also don't want you to have a false sense of security because your kids don't have that. Because unfortunately, perpetrators have figured out ways to get around a lot of the monitoring systems. We're very familiar with a lot of those, and we usually say it's better to go app by app and be involved in, the parental controls within there. So I know I don't have a lot more time. I want to give you guys time to ask questions, but just best practices for app use, having your kids make their accounts private. turning off location services. Most of the apps in each one will have that option. And then regular tune-ups, just like the sex talk. It's not a one-time thing. We're checking in with our kids. We're saying, do you know this person who is your, friend on here? Are they actually in your school? Are they someone you've met in person? Having those sort of conversations to, make sure that, they're being as safe as possible on these apps. Like I said, there are tools in most of the apps. Discord has one as well, that allow you to have some parental controls. My son is 12 and he really wanted Discord. And so our conversation about that was, you're too young for it. So I'm going to allow you to have it with just a couple of your friends, and I'm going to have the app so I can see your conversations. Now, as he gets a bit older, he should have some privacy. There is a family version, so I can switch to the family version when he gets a little bit older so that I can see who he's communicating with, but I can't see the conversations. So there are ways to sort of, be involved. And we really say, download that app, learn about it yourself, ask your kids to teach you, sit there and go through the features with them, because they want to bring you into their world, and you're showing interest in something they're interested in. But then that way, the features and the parental controls, and what the potential dangers are, and you're having that conversation with them. I'm not really going to have time to go into sort of what perpetrators do, but it's grooming. So I just want to remind you that these are not bad kids. These are perpetrators who are very skilled, very manipulative. They know how to reach children. They establish a bond. And just lastly, if something happens, we say pause, suspend the urge to delete everything. That's a really common urge. People will say, my child broke my trust, and we want to remind them that's not actually the case. Your child was manipulated by someone. So be mad at that person instead of being mad at your child. Care for them. There's going to be a burst of feelings on your end. You're going to maybe feel blame or shame. But you need to be there for the child because they've experienced something that could be very traumatic for them. And then report. NCMEC has a tip line that you can report sex abuse and people who have been inappropriate with a child. And then you can also go to local law enforcement. That's, generally what we recommend to people. And then support. Once you've sort of gotten through all of that, is there ongoing support that your child might need? So here's some resources. NCMEC has a great thing about sextortion, if that's something you're interested in learning about a little bit more. Common Sense Media is also a really great resource. And then we have a blog that you can go to. I'm just going to leave this up if anybody wants to use their phone to follow the lead there. And then I'm going to unshare my screen in a minute and just open it up for some questions.
Jen, thank you so much. You had such really good information, and I thank you for all the work that SOSA does. Does anybody have any questions for Jen? You can
Jeannie,
unmute.
I'm going to ask you to call on people just because I can't see everybody.
Okay.
Or if you just want to unmute. I'm sorry, it's so fast. I know I don't have a lot of time. Usually these presentations are like 45 minutes. So I tried to rush through it as quickly as I could. Make
So
sure
feel
there's
free.
time for the other presenters.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. But feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, or you can put questions in the chat.
Let me see if I can go
You're
to the
getting, I don't
chat
know if you can see in the chat, but you're getting a lot of thank you messages in the chat.
Wonderful.
And also Krista has put in the SOSA's website so people can
Oh,
learn
perfect.
there. So
I'm just looking at the chat real quick to see if there are any questions.
anybody have any questions for Jen? I do recommend that you watch that. You called it a docuseries, right? That's on Max.
Correct.
It was very eye-opening and very scary too. So
yeah, and our new program is coming out pretty soon on YouTube. It's just YouTube /@ SOSA Undercover. And we're gonna have a lot more behind the scenes of that, which I think is going to be really interesting, especially related to sex trafficking, because that's something that we are doing more of, sadly. And really showing, I think there's a lot of misperceptions about sex trafficking, that it's someone being grabbed in a parking lot, But we have found that sex traffickers are in children's DMs. That is how they are making contact, or through actually a friend at school. So they're making contact. They have one child and they're having that child at school saying, hey, you can make money. You know, don't you want to get involved with this? So, and a lot of the conversations are happening online. So that's definitely an area that I think, it's important for us to all understand and to realize the risk.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here, and thank you for the work that SOSA does, and pass the word on to everybody at SOSA that you guys are all are my heroes anyway. So we're just, again, thank you for the work that you do, Jen.
Thank you so much.
I am going to turn it over now to Hannah Moore. Hannah is a detective with the Sex Crimes Unit at Shelby Police Department, and she's going to talk about sextortion and sex from a law enforcement perspective.
Hey guys, how are you doing today? I am going to attempt to share my screen here. I apologize, I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, which really does not go hand in hand with this career, but I am muddling my way through it, and we have a great IT guy who takes care of what I am not the best at. So, like she said, my name is Hannah. I am an investigator for Shelby Police Department. I work all things kids, so juvenile sex crimes, child abuse, sextortion falls in that purview. I also am a TFO, or a task force officer, with the North Carolina SBI, and we work closely with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which, as Jennifer mentioned, NCMEC, we receive tips from them, and we have to follow up on those tips for children who may be being sexually exploited or being trafficked. That is a huge part of my job. I was asked to come and talk to you guys about the dangers of sextortion from a law enforcement perspective. This is a little bit different than what you would see in an online chat or with a regular day-to-day group. We're going to look at it from a legal perspective and try to understand the threat of sextortion and how we can avoid it and how we can protect our community a little bit more and protect our children. So our children are our greatest asset. So before we can understand it, we have to know what it is and be able to define it. So sextortion is defined as a form of blackmail, where offenders threaten to release explicit images or videos unless these victims comply with their demands. This can involve financial extortion, coercion, further exploitation, or other forms of abuse. This is most common among young adults and adolescents, but it is not solely focused on young adults and adolescents. Nobody is exempt from this. I used to teach my kids, I have 4 of my own, 2 are teenagers, and I would tell them to do the grandma test. So the grandma test, I want you to picture that sweet little old lady, the one that you love in your life, whether it's your grandma, your auntie, a close family friend, somebody that you trust, somebody that you've grown up with. I want you to picture her seeing images that you have uploaded or that you may be receiving. If it is not something that you would want your grandma to see, don't post it, don't receive it, stay away from it. And I used to have to I was like, okay, this is what I need to tell my kids. They're the ones that need to hear this. But the longer I've done this job, the more I've seen it's not just kids that need to know this. We need to tell our young adults. We need to tell our 20s and our 30s, because it is very easy for them to fall into this trap. And then once they are in there, the cycle of depression and hopelessness and that feeling of not being able to escape just consumes them. So before, I tell everybody now, before you post it, before you send it, before you even think about doing it, would you want your grandma to see it? So bear with me. I've got to, can you guys still see my screen? Or did I mess it up?
It looks good, Hannah.
Okay. Bear with me, it has disappeared on my end. Okay, I apologize. Are we still good? All right. So social media and messaging apps will be used by offenders to lure their victims. This happens through fake profiles. As a law enforcement officer, I have fake profiles on just about every platform. We do not use these to entice people. I use them to follow people. I am in one. My name is Jane Austen. Jane Austen has thousands of followers. People think nobody has picked up on the fact that Jane Austen's been deceased for quite a long time. Jane Austen is a teenage girl that just likes to smoke weed and have a good time. And the amount of pictures that get sent to Jane Austen without anybody ever requesting it from Jane Austen's profile is out. It's just ridiculous. It is very, very easy to create these profiles. It takes little to no work, and often the victims don't know. They don't know, hey, I need to look, is Josh Turner really messaging me? I need to look and see if this is Josh Turner's real profile. They will use hacking, they'll use phishing, they'll gain access to their personal devices or their cloud storage. It is so easy to talk kids into giving the suspect your location or your login data. They think that they are giving you something special because they can trust you, when in reality it's part of the grooming process. And once they have that information, these kids are stuck in this victim cycle again, and it's awful. And then they feel the blame for it. These children or these young adults feel like it is their fault when it is not their fault. They've been groomed. And like Jennifer mentioned before, it takes 8 minutes. It is very, very easy. The average attention span of a child now is less than 3 minutes. If you can keep them on there long enough to talk to them, you've got them. They gain their trust. It can be over just a very short period of time or over a long time. They coerce their victims to do things that you would never expect. It's not just send pictures, it's send financial information. They can convince them to steal from their parents. They can convince them to send pictures of other juveniles that they may have on their phones from any app. And then you've got peer exploitation. This is when you've got known individuals who are manipulating their victims. This is the teacher. This can be an older kid from a senior class or even a kid from the same class. This is that boy or girl that the victim has tried to impress. It happens, and it's not always a stranger on the internet. As a parent, I cannot emphasize how important it is to have those tough conversations with your kids. Talk to them about what they're doing online, what their online presence says, what their footprint says. What are you putting out on your profile? What is public? As a parent, I don't allow my kids to have any social media, but I'm also not foolish enough to think that my teenagers are not going to try to do something that I would tell them not to do. So I want them to know how to be safe if they do these things. So I apologize. I'm trying to go to the next slide. There we go. Victim impact is huge. It doesn't discriminate. It's not based on race, creed, age, religion, sexual orientation, or any of the other variables among any of us. The biggest thing, it doesn't discriminate. It leaves lasting damage. You've got emotional and psychological damage, which can lead to depression, anxiety, PTSD. All of these have been associated with victims of sextortion. They can financially exploit them, whether they are teenagers, family members, adults. They can demand money. They'll ask for gift cards, Green Dot cards, Apple Music. Anything that is digital is huge. They're not going to necessarily say, hey, you need to send me $20 cash in an envelope. Everything is Cash App or Zelle, Venmo sometimes, but the biggest thing I see is Cash App, especially among teenagers. And they're going to demand that this stuff is sent. They're not asking, they're not telling you. And if you don't send it, they're going to threaten to release personal information that the victim feels is very damaging, whether that's a picture or even just things that they've said or text. Maybe they don't want their parents, their grandparents, or their guardian to know that they have been texting an older individual, or they've been texting an individual their same age sexually explicit things. And they get worried, oh, if I don't do X, Y, or Z, they're going to tell on me. And that fear often causes them to make decisions that a rational person who is not scared would not make. They can threaten that social reputation harm. They're going to let the other kids in their class or in their school, they're going to let their parents know. If you're an adult, we're going to let your workplace know what you're doing. We're going to let your church know. How do you want your pastor to know what you've been doing? If you don't, you better meet our demands. Because they're demanding this, you go back to having that financial exploitation, that emotional and psychological damage, and the combination of these things can lead to self-harm. You have an elevated suicide risk. You have that trapped feeling, that all-encompassing darkness that you don't know how to get out of. You feel like you've dug yourself a hole. It's too embarrassing to talk about. You don't want to report it to law enforcement or to your family. They feel that they can be scared. And so they feel like they have no escape. Self-harm gets seen as a way out. Suicide can be seen as a way out. It's a really, really bad cycle to get stuck in. Offenders will use many different tactics. We talked about impersonation and the fake profiles that pretend to be the peers, friends, or even celebrities. My daughter, she's almost 14 now. When she was 12, she had downloaded TikTok. She was not supposed to do that, but she was comfortable enough to come and tell me, hey, Mom, I think I did something I shouldn't have done. She showed me she had downloaded this app, but she was all excited because she was on there, and she says, Josh Turner, this country musician, has messaged her and wants her to send him information. She's like, Mom, I don't know why he would pick me, but how cool is this? And I had to tell her, oh, honey, you've been lied to. And we talked about it. And there was no threat from him. He was asked, the person pretending to be Josh Turner was asking for stuff, but he had not asked for anything crazy. She had come and seen me before this happened, which is great. But these threats can escalate, and they can escalate quickly. It can be even severe threats, not necessarily, I'm going to release what you sent. It can be, I know where you live. I know who your family is. When their profiles are unlocked, it's not hard to find this information. They can use that fear to target the victim and get their compliance. And it's not necessarily a one-time thing. They will harass these victims over and over again until they get what they want or until somebody stops them. And they will target the victim's vulnerabilities. When they focus on minors, it's going to be the vulnerabilities that they may discuss. Looks, school, family, anything that a juvenile is vulnerable about. They can threaten with adults, jail, prison time. They're going to find your weakness. As a victim, they are looking for your weakness. They're going to target that. They're going to pick away at it until that victim is trapped. With adults, it is not uncommon at all one of the newer scams is the adult thinks they're speaking to another adult on a dating site. And they've talked to this other adult for several days, and the next thing you know, somebody messages them and says, hey, you've been talking to my 15-year-old daughter. If you don't send me money, I'm going to call the police on you. You're going to prison. I'm going to release this whole conversation. And the adult, somebody with a fully developed brain, is like, oh, crap, I'm going to prison. I've been speaking to a 15-year-old. When they would never do that in real life, but they think that they've messed up. And a lot of times they're scared to report it to the police. They will target that vulnerability. This is Sextortion, what we're talking about, is a really serious crime. There's several felony charges it can result in here in North Carolina. Some of the most common ones are extortion, disclosure of private images, cyber stalking, and exploitation of a minor, either first, second, or third degree. The exploitation charges typically involve pictures, and it depends on whether you create it, you upload it, download it, store it. All those things play into whether it's first, second, or third degree. So some prevention strategies that parents can have that open door of communication with your child. Talk about their online presence, their footprints. If you allow them to have social media, have that open conversation and that open door of communication where they are comfortable showing you what they have. It doesn't necessarily have to be a, give me my phone, I pay for that phone, I'm going to look at it right now, because they're going to shut down. If you're older than the 90s, like I am, think about if you had a journal as a child and your parents said, give me that journal, I paid for that notebook, I'm going to look at it right now. For kids, these phones, these computers that they have, they are their lifeline. They are everything for them. That is their journal. That is their entire world is stored in that little handheld computer. If you're with a school, you're a teacher, guidance counselor, you have any role with these kids on a day-to-day behavior that isn't a parent, check in with your students. Pay attention to their behavior. If you notice a change in it, don't be afraid to address it. It could be something that's going on with their peers. It could be something going on online that they're not comfortable sharing. Don't be afraid to hit it head on. And for the love of all that is good, if you believe your child or the child in your life may be considering self-harm, ask them head on. That is a really important question, and dancing around it or finding other ways to ask it is not necessarily the best route. Be that compassionate, caring adult they can trust and address it with them, because the sooner we know about it, the better help we can get them and the quicker we can combat these problems and help them to overcome what it is in their life they're facing. And on an individual level as an adult, never, ever, ever share intimate images online. Just don't. We don't want to text them. We don't want to post them. We don't want to save them in our Dropbox, because these things can be hacked. These things can be shared, whether you do it on purpose or not. Use your privacy settings. Restrict access to your profiles. We don't need all of our information posted all over the internet. So Google has an easy tool to use called Google Lens. You can take a picture from anybody's profile. If you see a building in the background, screenshot that picture, go to Google Lens, upload that picture to Google Lens, and there's a very high probability they'll be able to tell you exactly where that picture was taken. And if there's people in it, they may be even able to tell you who these people are. There's facial recognition software. They can pick out anything as minute as what beach you're on. It is not hard. It does not take advanced degrees to do this, and people are targeting children. They're targeting these young adults. They're looking for ways to get their gratification at the expense of the victim. So what do you do if you were a victim? The biggest thing, there is no shame in it. It is not hard to fall victim to scammers, especially if they know what they're doing. It is not your fault. It is not your fault if your vulnerabilities were exploited. It is certainly not your child's fault. If you are a parent of a child who's been a victim to this, be there, be that support system, because they're going to need it. They're going to need you to have their back, and that is where that trust is going to come from. So if you find that you've been a victim or someone you know has been a victim, the first thing to do is report it to law enforcement. Even if it is like the scammers we talked about earlier, where they come and say, hey, you've been talking to my 15-year-old daughter. If there was no malice in that, you were not there talking to a 15-year-old, you thought you were talking to an adult, please report it to law enforcement. We're not there to hurt you or to come after you or arrest you. If you've been a victim, let us know, because as a investigator, I want to get the person who's responsible for that, not the victim. It doesn't matter how embarrassing it is. I can assure you we have heard it. We're not judging you for it. Do not comply with any of their demands. Do not send them money. And if you have, stop right away. Don't send them any more. You can't change what's already been done, but we can work through it and get a better resolution. Preserve any digital evidence of this, of these transactions. Oftentimes with victims of sex crimes, there is a sense of shame that goes with these crimes. And the sense if you've ever dealt with a sexual assault victim, one of the first things that is common is the victim wants to get rid of their clothes or their sheets or their bedding. The same as with digital evidence. There's this natural desire to want to delete it and get rid of any evidence. Please do not do that. Preserve it, screenshot it, and bring it to law enforcement because we're going to need that. It is extremely important to the case going forward. After you have taken care of all of that, after you've screenshot it, after you've saved the phone, and you've preserved any digital evidence that they have sent you or that you have sent to them, block them in their profile. Do not allow them to continue harassing you or communicating with you. You do not owe them an explanation. You do not owe them any reason or any more of your time. You owe them nothing. So, as we are coming to the end of this, sextortion is a growing threat. It requires immediate action and awareness. Oftentimes, we can be our own worst enemies. Keep your digital footprint secure and don't give the criminals any leverage over you. Don't be afraid to talk to law enforcement. I promise you, we are here to help. I'm going to open it up to any questions.
While we're waiting, thank you, Hannah, so much for being here today and for the work that you do as well. You're one of my heroes now, too. And if anybody has any questions for Hannah,
I wanted to make
one
comment. Hannah, I really loved your presentation. One of the things that we've come across is a lot of parents think, you know, I worry about my teenage girls, but I don't worry about my teenage boys. And I think sextortion especially is one of the areas where boys are targeted. A lot of times it's someone pretending to be a teenage girl and they will actually send nude photos to the boy, which are of another exploited child, but they think they're talking to someone their age and they're getting nude photos. So they feel like, oh, I have to send something back or I have to send information back. And then they're in the, we've had people contact us where, you know, they said, oh, we're going to contact your coach or the colleges you've applied to, like they have all this information. So I just wanted to point that out. I know you said on your slide, you know, it doesn't discriminate based on gender or race or sex or orientation or anything like that. But just wanted to point out that we've definitely seen this issue specifically with teenage boys that I think people are not really aware of.
You are absolutely right. I would say the ratio of boys to girls on my caseload is very equal. If it doesn't lean heavier towards the boys, because, like you said, they're preying on those vulnerabilities. And I apologize also, guys. I gave the disclaimer at the top. I am not the tech savvy person, so I was working through the PowerPoint.
You did great on it. We just appreciate your being here and thank you for your work. Does anybody have any questions? Again, you can either put it in the chat, and there are a lot of thank yous in the chat, Hannah, if you want a chance to look at those. Also, someone's mentioned, Ellen, about a YouTube channel called No Text to Speech that exposed a Discord that was preying on teens and preteen boys. So I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but one thing I wanted to mention something. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I've not heard of that one, but I'm going to write it down, take a picture of it, and we're going to follow up on that to see where they're based out of.
He posts quite a bit of videos about like the hacking on Discord, people like preying on like teenage girls and grooming them, and there was like this whole Discord that was like getting teen boys to join, and it's bad. I mean, he recorded everything that was said in that, and it was pretty bad.
Thank you for sharing that, Ellen. One thing that I wanted to share that I learned about a year ago, I was actually attending a training about trafficking, and there was someone there who was talking about her grandson who had been the victim of sextortion, and they were trying to get him into therapy. And I don't know how this is in other states, but in North Carolina, there's a lengthy waiting period sometimes to get into treatment. And before he could get into treatment, he died by suicide. And the person who was the director of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Agency spoke up and said that anybody who has been a victim of sextortion is a victim of of sexual abuse, and they are eligible to receive services through the sexual assault, whatever agency serves survivors of sexual assaults. And I know in Cleveland County and many other counties, there are licensed therapists on staff. So that may be an option if you know someone that needs to get into treatment, maybe go to your local domestic violence or sexual assault agency and see if they have services they can offer to that person. Any other questions for Hannah? Were you going to say something, Hannah?
I love that you recommended the local resources here. That is huge. There's the National Center for NCMEC has some good resources on their website, and then the Children's Advocacy Centers, the National Children's Advocacy Centers, can also have different links for therapeutic resources in your area. There's helpful tips for parents. So those are both also resources that can be looked into if you find yourself looking for them.
Great. Yeah, thanks for adding that, Hannah, as well. Anything else for Hannah? Hannah, I do hope you read the thank you messages that are in the chat for you. And this time I'd like to introduce Kenny Swanson. Kenny is the Safety Information Director. Did I say that right, Kenny? For Partners Health Management.
It's the information security, same thing. Try to keep everybody safe, but it's the same thing.
I was trying to do it from memory. So
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, and Kenny's going to talk to us about phishing and some of those things.
And we're going to try to move through this.
You'll be fine.
And I will try to go as quickly as I can. Well, now I'm not seeing where I can share my screen. There it is. Okay, found it. So hopefully you can see that now. Good deal. Okay, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to try to stay out of the weeds. We're going to try to just give you a look at this so that you can try to figure out what you can do when you become a victim, because I can tell you it's not a matter, you hear this a lot, it's not a matter of if you are a victim of phishing, malware, scams through your email or website. It's just a matter of when. It's going to happen. It happens to people who are tech savvy or they're novices with tech. So it's just a fact of how you react. So we're going to look at this. I came from an era when I was in college, they actually posted my grades on my Social Security number. Now, we know that's not a very bright thing for them to do, but they did. So, if you're thinking that all your information is intact and safe and put away and not been sent out to the bad actors, then you're probably living in a utopia world where reality doesn't enter. The fact is, it's out there. We just need to know what to do once we become a victim and they start using this against us. So that's what we're going to look at. There's two ways to approach this. First off, you don't want to be hacked. If you never want your identity stolen or compromised, you can totally go off the grid. Just do away with all your electronics and do not do any business with anybody who uses electronics to store your data or create data about you. And that's not a reality. So the second thing that we can do, and this is what I hope you will do, is that you will take time to learn about the threats. Everybody says, well, I don't need to know because I don't know enough to stop them anyway. You just need to know a high level. There again, look at what's out there. Look at what can happen. They were talking about sextortion. You know, there's the real sextortion, and there's the fake sextortion, where you will actually get an email saying, we compromised your video camera on your computer, and we have been watching you as you visited porn sites and done things like that you shouldn't have been doing. And the fact is, you know, a lot of times that will scare you into taking immediate action of sending the money. There's no actual compromise. I've seen this with people that I know, personal, and at our organization, where they have reported to me that they've got this email. What do they need to do? And so these are the things that you just need to be aware of so that you can protect yourself. And then you've got the pros, like the first two speakers. You can always access somebody who has information and will walk you through step by step what you need to do. But we're going to look at what we're doing here. This is talking about cybersecurity and things that we need to know, just the basics of. So there's my little disclaimer, if you can see it. This is not meant for legal purposes. This is what I do. This is my feelings on how to best approach this and some of the best actions to take. Now, if anytime you can't see my presentation, let me know, because I can't see it, but I have it on a different screen. So these are some of the breaches, the recent breaches. This presentation was taken from an hour-and-a-half presentation, so I'm going to try to condense it and do it quickly. But you see all of the breaches that have happened. That means that somehow, if you have done business with any organization and you have just done a Google search for recent breaches, you can see that your data has probably been compromised. You may have even received a letter from an organization saying, we had a breach. There is a chance that your information was compromised. So what do? Do you panic? No, because that's what the bad guys kind of depend on. They depend on you to panic and to take an action or to react to what you're seeing. It's best just to breathe and slow down and then have a plan mapped out. Now, I say a plan mapped out. Most of you, if you have an emergency plan at your house to take care of any physical incident that happens, you should also have a plan or a basic blueprint to follow if you receive a phishing email or if you become a victim of identity theft. Know beforehand the first steps you're going to take, whether it's contacting law enforcement, whether it's contacting other family members, whether it's whatever your action is. Make you a blueprint. There is no wrong path. It's however you think that you need to proceed to identify what's going on. Now, we have the tools to do an analysis on emails. We have the tools to do an analysis when malware comes in. You may not have that, but there are some free tools out there that you can use to do a high level analysis to kind of see what you're looking at when an email comes to you. And that's how most malware and most phishing attacks, they happen through email. You can still get the old type phishing, what they call voice phone calls, somebody trying to get information from you. And you can get what they call smishing, which is the text messaging. All those, you just need to know how to identify them and to move past what's going on. So you see these breaches. Now, malware is the most common type of malicious files or malicious software that you receive into your computer. This is where you need to really be careful about the links that you click in an email, or if you're on a website, if you do social media. I go on social media sometimes just to get some stories that I can put in presentations, because I'll see where a star has passed away. And I know good and well that star has not passed away. They're trying to get you to click on that link to get more information out of you. You will see things on Facebook, Twitter, all these things that you're communicating through. And I don't even know all these, because there again, I'm older than dirt. But I know that what they try to do is just get a little bit of information. They may take photos you have posted and look at the background of those photos and see some important information that they can use to basically persuade you that they know you. They may say that you have be at work and have a photo of the board behind you, and it has like a project number on it. And they may contact you and say, I've been working with you on this project, and actually say, well, yeah, I'm working on that project, so that must be legitimate. These are the things that they try to do that you have to be aware of. There's things, there's red flags that you will always see, but malware is very dangerous because malware can work in the background. Most malware that is from people who want to steal information, it's not something that's going to pop up and say you have malware. It's not going to pop up and say you have a virus. It's not going to do things like that. It's going to work in the background. It's going to install something they call key loggers, which every time you hit a key, it's going to record it and send it to the bad actor who has installed the malware on your device. So be very careful about the links. You know, curiosity did kill the cat, and it will do a lot of harm to you because anytime you click something just because you think, well, that's interesting, I want to read that. That's what they count on. They count on your curiosity. Phishing is probably the way that they'll try to interact with you. It's the best way they can interact with you. Steal your banking information, steal anything they can. Well, I say steal, and I use that term loosely because you give it to them. You actually allow them to ask you these questions. I tell my staff here all the time, when someone shares a file with you, you should never have to put in your passwords to look at that file. Because I have shared you a file through SharePoint or some other file sharing that we use here at our organization, I've already done all the work on my end. You should not have to confirm who you are for this. If you have to set up a password to look at something, it should be a unique password. It shouldn't be anything that you have to get into your information. Once they steal your password, they have the keys to the kingdom. I can find your credentials, your user account name. That's very, very simple to find. Your password, I have to work to find it. I can either run some kind of algorithm to do a brute force attack, which is very difficult unless you have a simple password. And we'll go over that in a little bit. But, you know, these are the things that you need to really understand, that you should never share your password with anybody. If you have to write them down, that's okay, because you may need somebody else, a family member, a close family member, to have access to these devices at some time. But lock them up, just like you do your passport and do like any other important papers. Lock them in a safe receptacle so nobody else can have them. Don't carry them with you. Don't put them in a note on your phone. These are the things that you should remember. And like I said, if you have to write them down, put them where they're not, they can't be accessed. Watering holes attack. You look at things like that. You look at the, that's where they try to get you to visit something. They'll have you click on a link. These legitimate websites can have poison links inserted into them. They're not 100% secure either. And these links are not taken down until they're discovered and reported to the vendor. So you may be on a legitimate website and see a link for something that sounds too good to be true, and it probably is, and then you need to just don't click on it. Don't do that. QR codes, that's one of the newest things. Scanning a QR code is the way we go to a URL now. It is basically a link in a picture form. Look at the QR code, see if it's been altered, see if a sticker's been put over the top of it, see if anything like that. When you click on, if you take a snapshot of that QR code and it sends you to a site that you know is not where you should be, close it out immediately. Now, here's how you can protect yourself, and I'll try to do this quickly. I see I'm running a little on time here. Stay up to date on current threats. It doesn't take long to read about current threats. Use a good detection and mitigating application, some kind of antivirus, some kind of intrusion detection. They usually come as packages now. And you can get these, and if you get the free version, understand you're not getting real-time detection. If it's free, it's better than nothing at all. But if you're going to get something, if you invest in it, it's going to pay for itself. Trust me. Use multi-factor authentication, and a lot of you have got that on a lot of your accounts. It will keep. It's not bulletproof, but it will keep the bad actors. It will put another step or another phase in that link that they have to break through. And you got to remember, these guys are going after the low-hanging fruit. They're in it for the money. They're in it for immediate returns, and they're not going to mess with you if they see a lot of security in place. They're going to move on. Use strong complex manager or a password manager. Don't use your favorite school, the pet's name, your birthday. Don't use those things, because I can do a little bit of reconnaissance and I can discover who you are very quickly. And I can use these things in a brute force attack, and I can probably get your password. An 8-character password, they had a publication on this, can be broken in less than 30 minutes if it is something, a common word or a common phrase. So make your passwords long, make them complex, use phrases, misspell words, spell words backwards, use characters, do all those things. Never use the same password for different accounts. That is critical, because if I hack one account, I'm going to find these other accounts on your social media or do some reconnaissance, and I'm going to go after them too. I've seen it happen. I have seen it firsthand where they got multiple accounts because they used the same password. Here's one that a lot of people don't understand. Don't reuse a password, because if your password's ever been compromised in a breach and you've changed it, you've moved on, but the bad guy, he's paid for that. So he's going to hang on to it, and he's going to keep trying that password. And eventually, knowing human nature, you're going to come back to that password after that requirement breaks. So you're going to come back to it, and now he's got you, and there's nothing that you can do about it until you detect that, because there's been no phishing email recently, nothing like that. Do not log on to public Wi-Fi or guest Wi-Fi if you are going to do sensitive business. If you're going to log into your bank account, because I can sit there, be on the same Wi-Fi, I can hook up a Pi device, something I can buy from Amazon, and I can program it, and I can do a keylogger, and I can see every key that you're pushing, and I can get the URL you're going to, which would be your bank or some other financial institution, and I can get your passwords. So be very, very careful about that. And I could go on, but I'm going to stop there because I see I am out of time, and I even went further. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or get in touch with me somehow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. I'm sorry we ran out of time, but the information you have is so important. I'm sorry we didn't get to hear more of it, but Kenny's a huge source of knowledge about all the ways that people can trick us. But thank you all for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Krista Moore now.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here. I think we all gained a lot of information today. Also, the PowerPoint that a lot of people are requesting in the chat has been emailed to Jeannie, and she'll send that to you guys. And next month, I put the link in the chat. We are going to be doing Celebrating Cancer Prevention. That will be on February 26th at 10 a.m. So thank you again for everyone being here, and stay warm and have a great day.
Thank you all.